Hello everybody, we are here today talking about some news that's happened within the league in the past week. I know I'm late on this, but I had a very busy week, especially on my other channel, but I did put out a poll on YouTube and you guys said you still wanted to hear about this news even though it's late, so we're going to talk about a lot of moves that have happened for teams and kind of some hockey operations decisions that they've made lately. So before we start, please make sure to subscribe if you're new. If not, no big deal. Now let's get into it. So the first thing we're going to be talking about here is the Washington Capitals hiring their new head coach, and that is Spencer Carbery. And this is an interesting decision. Carbery is a guy that has got a lot of experience. This is going to be his first time being a NHL coach, head coach at this level, and that is something that's a little bit daunting, especially as Washington missed the playoffs for the first time in a minute. But he is also a guy that I feel like you could have a lot of faith in. He has a ton of AHL experience as a head coach. He started out with the South Carolina Stingrays and was a coach there for a while. He also coached the Providence Bruins, I believe, for a year, as well as the Hershey Bears. And also he was the coach for an OHL team for like a year, if I'm not mistaken. So plenty of experience within this past decade of getting that head coaching experience that is so vital. He also went to Toronto as an assistant coach and was a guy that really had kind of a big role in the turning around of Toronto's power play, which was something that had slipped a little bit. He arrives and is contributed partially to the Leafs being back to the dangerous aspect on the man advantage. So that's good there. The biggest thing for me is, why did he choose to be here? Well, because Hershey is the AHL affiliate of Washington. That's probably why. And he knows a lot of these guys that are younger, as well as some of the NHL guys. I've read multiple articles saying that he has worked with multiple Washington Capitals stars, including like guys like Alex Ovechkin in the preseason, things like that. So it just kind of makes sense to go there. They wanted him originally before he left to go to Toronto, so he's a guy that they wanted. He's coming back, so now he's here and is going to try to make this team good, even though they're aging and they have a lot of older guys that are getting a good chunk of money, which is going to be interesting. But I do think this is a good hire, even though Washington's trajectory could still be where they don't make the playoffs this year. Now, the other thing that happened in terms of head coaching news was the Nashville Predators firing their coach, Coach Hines. He had been there for like 4 years. He was previously the coach of the New Jersey Devils, but he had kind of mixed results in Nashville. But now they're bringing in Andrew Brunette, and that is a guy that really, it's kind of funny. He's the fourth head coach in Nashville Predators history, but he's also the guy that scored the first goal ever for the Nashville Predators in their inaugural season. He played 1 year, I believe, for Nashville, but here he is coming back home, not really, but kind of, you know, after so long, and just the journey he's been on as a player. He's a guy that scored over 250 goals in his career and is replacing Coach Hines, obviously, after really only having one partial season of NHL experience. He was the interim head coach for the Florida Panthers after everything went down with Coach Q. He ended up having a good time there, though. They went 51-18-6 on their way to the President's Trophy and a first-round victory over the Washington Capitals. I think this is going to be an interesting decision. A lot of people view him as a good candidate for any team, but a big thing here is the fact that he lacks experience, but also this is Barry Trotz's first big decision as the GM of the Nashville Predators. Of course, David Poile ended up becoming, part of the other aspect of management, but with Trotz here, this is kind of his first big stamp here for the organization. And I think this one is interesting because the Predators are a team that was better than expected last year, but a lot of that's probably attributed to Jussi Saros just carrying the team. So if Saros goes down for an extended period of time, I really do worry that this hire could be one of those that is questioned, when in reality, Nashville is a team that is extremely dependent on their goalie being healthy, basically to get them in any hopes of making a playoff spot. Now, in other news, up in Toronto, up in good old Ontario, the Maple Leafs hired Brad Treliving to be their GM. This comes not too long after they fired Kyle Dubas, and this one is interesting as well. Treliving had a lot of experience being the Calgary Flames GM for nearly a decade. That team had a lot of success, especially in the regular season, but kind of like Toronto, they had some heartbreakers, some, just really painful losses. A couple of years ago, they were the top seed in the West, and, that kind of crumbled for them there. But he is also a guy that has had some ups and downs too, kind of like the team. And for me, I kind of feel like maybe this is a recycling type thing where they knew they needed a GM with experience, considering they let go of Dubas in May with the draft coming up and stuff like that, they wanted to be able to have a guy that was ready to go and had that experience. But again, a guy that just really has, been in the league, but we didn't really hear about a lot of other people that they were looking at. Maybe there were guys and women, behind closed doors that they were trying to see if maybe this was the right fit for them. But I do wonder how this one's going to go, because I think a lot of people look at this as kind of a downgrade compared to Kyle. We will see, though, as the biggest thing he has to tackle at this point is the fact that 3 of the big 4, that being Marner, Nylander, and Matthews, are on expiring deals. Matthews, I believe, is a free agent after this year, and then Nylander and Marner, I believe it's after, not this season, but the season after that. So these guys that are big parts of the team and their success are possibly on their way out. Do I think they're all going to leave? Probably not, but it does beg the question, is one of the big 4 going to be moved? Tavares is safe. We've been saying that for a while now, so who else would that be? If that was the case, I really don't know, as Toronto tries to figure out what way they're going to go. They're still probably a team that should be really good this year, and we'll see how Treliving figures things out there, because it's Toronto. Things can go crazy in a flash. And then the final thing here is that the Penguins have hired Kyle Dubas as the president of hockey operations. I really like this move for Pittsburgh, and as a guy that's not a massive Pittsburgh Penguins fan, I feel frustrated that they're able to get a guy that is so young and is viewed as such a smart guy that really has a lot of potential. And for Pittsburgh, it's another win. I mean, this is a young 30-year-old guy, 33, 34, whatever it is, that is in a spot that really could play an impact for the Penguins for the next few decades if he decides to stay there. We know the Penguins, of course, are coming off of a season where they missed the playoffs for the first time in nearly 20 years. This is not normal for them. This is a team that has been built to compete. This has been a team that has been built to qualify for the playoffs every year for 16 years now, up until this past season. And now Dubas is coming into a stressful situation after clearly coming over from Toronto, which was also a stressful situation. So he can handle the stress. It seems like that's not a big deal. The biggest thing here now is going to be what he does as the president of hockey operations, because that's a level above the GM. You're making decisions who's going to be the GM, who's going to be the head coach, all those things. Coach Sullivan's probably there to stay because he does have that longer extension that he just signed, and a lot of people do view him as a pretty good head coach. I think that it was more Hextall that was kind of the problem there in Pittsburgh. I don't think that Sullivan was a guy that should have been fired. So it's good to see that Sullivan probably should be safe at least for another year. It kind of makes you wonder what's going to happen there, but with Dubas, he is going to be taking over as the interim GM until they can find the right candidate. I don't know who that'd be. I mean, Dubas theoretically could stay in there if he wanted to. But yeah, we will see. And then also I wanted to see how he was able to get this team back on the right track of making the playoffs. Shouldn't be too difficult, because you do wonder if some teams like maybe New York, if Sorokin got hurt or anything like that next year, maybe they take a step back, whatever the case is. I don't exactly know, but I do feel like Pittsburgh is in a pretty good spot where next year they should be in the hunt for the playoffs. But another thing I wanted to talk about is the ownership group, FSG, Fenway Sports Group. Will they be a good fit for Kyle? This is interesting because if you're not a soccer fan, and I'm not big into soccer, I keep up with some things, not really as much, but I occasionally will check articles because they've got some fun things. But Fenway Sports Group is a group that owns the Red Sox, and they also own Liverpool FC, which is a team over in England, and they're one of the sides that are pretty good over that time. They won the Premier League a couple years ago, they won the Champions League a couple years ago, and a lot of that's based on analytics, and I think that was partially attributed to the Red Sox and them kind of doing a deep dive into analytics, stuff like that. Now, as hockey becomes deeper and deeper into the analytic field, will FSG kind of open up an avenue for Kyle, or will it just kind of be the same situation? I think he had his guys in Toronto and they were using analytics, so that's not a problem. But it does seem like FSG is pretty open to finding ways to A, save money, and B, keep teams competitive while trying to save money compared to other teams. Now, Pittsburgh, of course, is probably going to be right up there with the cap in general, but finding those gems in the rough could be used with analytics, so it's going to be fun to see, and I look forward to that as the Pens, again, get a W. But what are your thoughts on some of these recent moves? Carbery to the Caps, is that good? Brunette to Nashville, is that good? And then, of course, Treliving to Toronto, and Dubas to Pittsburgh. I'd love to hear your thoughts down below in the comments. Also, please make sure to like this video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new. Also wanted to say that the house is kind of chaotic this weekend. It's going to be pretty busy, so you won't be seeing me till Monday. But always, everybody stay safe. Have a great night. And you go love hockey, all right? Goodbye, Brigadiers and Brigadettes. This is your captain signing off. Have a great night.